Hello and welcome to Buzz Banter. I'm Das Hat.
I'm Maya.
And today we bring you a movie review. The Amazing Spider-Man. Alright, so we talked about the trailer on this film. I wrote an article on Box Office Buzz discussing what they meant by the untold story, how they were going a little bit closer to the comic origins. If you've read the classic Spider-Man comics, and I'm talking about back in the 60s and 70s, you'll recognize exactly who Gwen Stacy and her family members are. The whole thing with the Lizard, Dr. Connors, and all that.
It's in the cartoon too, Dr. Connors.
Connors was in the cartoon.
Yeah.
Gwen Stacy really wasn't. She had a very sort of narrowed down and very different role in that.
Yeah.
Okay, what did you think about the film?
I had a bit of trouble taking in Gwen Stacy's, I guess the character, not the character herself, but more like the acting. I guess I had me and the people I went with going into the movie. We were aware that this would be the untold story, since we didn't follow the comics as closely as you per se. So we were expecting Gwen Stacy to have this arc to be pretty much standalone. So rather than be as connected with future movie per se, so we thought they would just manage to encapsulate her whole story in one movie.
Yeah, unfortunately that's not the way that it works, and if you've read the comics you know what's coming for her. That being said and everything, in all honesty, I'm very torn about this film. Because it starts off phenomenally.
Yes, it's an excellent. I think they're doing everything right. They've got
the
his parents stitching him. You've got Uncle Ben going up to him, being like, "Yes, great responsibility, Parker."
No, first of all, he says the whole "with great power comes great responsibility" thing without saying that.
Yeah, he reworded it.
And he actually rewords it to something that makes a lot more sense within the realm of the comic.
Yeah.
Well, within the realm of the comic books, it makes sense to say, with great power comes great responsibility, because you look out the window and there's a demigod flying by. That sense of power exists within the Marvel Universe, and when you try, in the first, Tobey Maguire film, he's the only superhero.
Yeah,
and so, there's no others, there's no one that's come before him. So saying something like that, with great power comes great responsibility, doesn't really make sense. You can assume the connection to political power or influence and all that stuff, but it's worded strangely. But in this, he's changed it around to, if you have the ability to do good, you have the moral obligation to do good.
Yes.
And it's not about choice, it's about the responsibility that you hold.
It's about not falling into bystander apathy. Which was also a fuel for the Watchmen series as well.
Yeah.
But in this case, with the younger audiences, since I went with my smaller cousins, right, they actually appreciated this concept quite a bit. The other idea that they had to deal with was that there's more than one superhero in this universe. They're starting to understand that Spider-Man's not the only guy going around saving the world. That he's not the first of his kind. They also had trouble positing why would his uncle say that, and I was like, if you guys have the time to watch the cartoon again, his uncle isn't they didn't really posit what his uncle is. I'm pretty sure he also was a vigilante in his day. If I'm he's friends with vigilante story.
Ben had some weird ties that they kind of wrote into the comics just to give him a little bit more backstory, which really wasn't necessary.
Yeah, it's not necessary.
That being said, Martin Sheen did I thought it was a strange casting choice initially, but seeing Martin Sheen talk him down and treat him like you would expect him to need to be treated, when times are good and everything, he's very buddy with him. He's like a father figure to him, but he is like a father figure to him. So when he gradually becomes more and more distant, Martin Sheen does kind of slap him down and go, "No, you're neglecting your responsibilities, and you deserve to be talked to in this manner." I thought it was a very good move because like the kid gloves are off now.
It's also a nice touch that they use like the voicemail function to like have like his uncle's final message to him, and he keeps replaying it. Like, mind you, the phone's upgraded since the back in the day, of course, when the comic first came out. But the concept is the same. He wants to hear like what his uncle wanted to say to him.
You actually have like a greater sort. It's interesting the development that Ben gets because previously, we'll compare it to the Tobey Maguire film because that's the obvious one. He just shows up and his uncle was kind of dragged out of his car and then shot. Whereas in this you see Ben dies because he's living the very philosophy that he was preaching to Parker. He steps in when he realizes that there's a chance to do good and to protect people and all this stuff, and he ultimately pays the price for that. You also had what I felt was a better sort of resolution to that, whereas in the Tobey Maguire film you had him like don the wrestling suit and everything and go out and like hunt down the guy and deal with him directly and that be the end of it. In this, you see him gradually become a superhero, where he's at first just trying to find Ben's killer, and he's going after this certain type. And over the course of that dinner that you saw in the trailers, Gwen's father actually like counters him when he says he's just trying to help. He's saying no, he's going after
only
a type.
One kind of person. He's not helping everyone.
He's got his own personal vendetta that he's trying to get, and you see that dawning on Peter's face in that film, in that section of the film, where he just goes, he's right, I'm not actually protecting people, and it's only at the bridge scene when the lizard first shows up that he has that moment where he's just like, no, I need to protect everyone. You see his gradual rise.
He becomes a master cosplayer, by the way.
He really does, the loose suits.
My little cousin was saying, and then she was like, I was like, he's sewing like a true cosplayer. He knows what he's up to. And like as a photographer, it was interesting to see his equipment upgrade too in this movie. Like he has his own computer and he's editing, and he has like a picture of Gwen Stacy right on his monitor. I like the concept of him actually the do-it-yourself ethic. Like he's not a professional. He's learning.
Well, he's learning and everything, but at the same time, you see like part of Peter Parker's character is that he is a near genius. He's brilliant, and you didn't get that in the Tobey Maguire films. He was just like your everyman.
Your every nerd. He's a stereotypical nerd rather than the.
But it was a side of him that wasn't developed because he was just unpopular, and then he gains these powers. But in this, you actually see him kind of researching, finding out how he got these powers, developing a means of, like he creates the web shooters and everything. He's very quippy as Spider-Man. He plays a great, Garfield plays the quippy Spider-Man very well. Just when he's... that one thing where he's just toying the guy that's trying to take that car, and he just like keeps it like using his webbing to close the door, and he's like he rolls down the window and he's climbing. I was like, oh, finally, you're figuring it out. Go out the window. Keep going, you're almost there.
This first half is great. Like honestly,
it's
then the second half was kind of the what are you doing?
They kind of lost their.
They lost the drive that they had in the beginning. At first I thought maybe it's because I'm getting distracted by how some of the characters that were casted, like the actress for Gwen Stacy, Emma Stone, right? I don't know who's doing her makeup, but the fact like I couldn't take her seriously, even though I knew that her acting, her eyes, I could believe what she's saying, but I had trouble taking her in as a blonde. Like I know Gwen Stacy, like how her looks are supposed to be, but the eyelashes. You really have to make them black?
Well, here's what...
there's brown mascara, man!
What really freaked me out about Gwen Stacy, though, was when she's next to Garfield, Emma Stone has these huge, very emotive eyes.
Yeah, which is great. It's great for acting. I believe her, like, when she's terrified.
Yeah, and when she's alone, you believe it and everything, but when she's next to Garfield, because he's got, like, these smaller, like, more obsessed eyes, she looks like anime, like, freakishly big eyes.
No, not even
It's just
anime.
a comparison between them.
Her facial structure, right, makes her look a lot younger, and it actually highlights that Garfield is probably older than her by a lot. Like,
Yeah.
rather than them being in the same grade, it feels like she's probably, like, a lot lower grade. Like,
Yeah.
I think it's her overall facial shape, because her hair is blocking part
Well,
of her face,
well,
and her eyes being big.
in all honesty,
it's not even anime, it's just, she looks too childlike.
It's nothing against the film itself, it was just something that I was just like, wait, what?
It's hard to take her in. It's like she actually looks like she's from high school, and Garfield at times reminds me of a college student.
Yeah.
Mind you, he's not supposed to be grade 12. I think he's supposed to be only grade, like, 11. Grade 10, 11.
They changed up his powers and everything to
Yeah.
something a little bit more believable.
He's
The spider sense and everything is gone, so that sort of like precognition isn't there. He just has amazingly fast reflexes.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that he like every now and again he takes a punch, he gets hit by something simply because while he's fast, he can't avoid everything.
Yeah, and he twitches. Like his facial expressions actually shows him like being aware of something that Emma Stone is not. And
Yeah.
that was excellent.
And the beginning half has a great attention to detail to it, and it's actually close to kind of like how a spider is. Like you see the morning after the spider bite, he's in his room kind of with a toothbrush, freaking out because he's hearing things that he couldn't hear before, because he's got the heightened senses, and he's becoming as territorial as spiders are.
Yeah.
But spiders also have an insanely high flight response, so like as soon as he notices the spider on the guitar, that's like all he can see, and it just like envelops all of his attention because he's like freaking out about it.
It's the second half, the suspension of disbelief. It was a lot harder. Like, mind you, I watched the movie in 3D, so I was kind of...
Which wasn't well done. Sony seems to have a serious problem with 3D for some reason.
Sometimes it's excellent, like his webbing getting shot out from his hand. That's gorgeous. Him going like panoramic style, jumping from building to building, gorgeous. But the moment you start doing close-ups again, the 3D kind of falls flat. Your backgrounds are blurry. Your characters are the close-ups are too close-up. There's nothing 3D about it. I took off my glasses.
And 3D doesn't work in a dark environment. You need to have kind of a well-lit space, which is why it works so well for Avatar.
It did work in a dark environment. Actually, I found the best 3D scenes in it was when it was the nightscape of the city.
I would beg to disagree with you there.
The acrobatics, I actually kept the glasses on because his acrobatics were so gorgeously rendered. Towards the end.
I'm going to disagree with you there.
Because I like the cranes going.
Well, that scene bothered me because it was so needlessly padded out. It just went on and on and on, and like you see that little bit of you help someone and it can have these unintended positive consequences for you. But they padded that out so much because he's going down one street, maybe 4 or 5 blocks. And why are there cranes all over New York? This isn't Dubai.
He was trying to make... I think the director tried to bring out the sublime so that rather than being carried by plot, you're being carried by the scenery, the emotional content of the scenery.
But that isn't what's there for the beginning half. It's not consistent.
It's not consistent. They should have, if they were going to use that technique, they could have brought something similar towards the beginning so you can get used to it. Because it was a bit out of place towards the end, but it was beautiful. Like it could have been saved for the next movie per se.
Between this and the first Tobey Maguire film, I actually did find myself enjoying this more, though it does have some rather serious problems towards the end. The Lizard, his descent into madness isn't really well fleshed out.
I couldn't see him as a villain because of it. I saw him as more of a... He had very... I know the road to hell is paved with good intentions, but I saw him as a scientist that's gone overboard.
Well, like...
Rather than as a villain who wanted to destroy the world.
Well, in the comics, the Lizard is its own separate personality. It's essentially just his id coming to the fore. And the reptile part of the mind that's just concerned about reproduction, eating, and killing things.
The director's probably aware that the Freudian psychology is now not as in vogue as it once was. So if you're going to pull the id, it's not going to work. It's not going to cut it. He has to be somewhat of a sociopath. So, and this man is antisocial. It works. It works that as an antisocial individual, he cuts off people from trying to enter his house. Parker comes in, he's like, "This is my home."
Yeah, but at the same time, like, you see how noble his intentions are and everything, and they just instantly flip.
Yeah.
Like, you don't see, like, with Dr. Octopus, in the second Tobey Maguire film, you saw how, like, the artificial intelligence of his claws kind of, like, slowly wore away at him, and the noble intentions were slowly corrupted. With Dr. Connors, it just instantly switches over. And it happens so suddenly, it's not well developed, he doesn't come off as a great thing. There's nice little attentions to detail, the whole sort of laying down trip mines in the sewer and just waiting for them to be tripped off. There's just randomly, like, tropical lizards running around all over New York in this film at one section.
It's the urban myth that people flush their pet lizards down the sewers idea.
But
That's what
they're
I was
all
assuming.
still alive, despite them being very obviously tropical lizards, like somehow living in New York and being able to survive in that environment. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Like, as good as the attention to detail is at some points, they lose the detail at other points. When he tells Gwen who he is, like, alright, I don't like Garfield's Parker, because it looks like he comes off as having a speech impediment rather than just being, like, socially awkward.
You went on to, that scene.
And he just keeps, like, shaking his head all the time because he just can't get words out for some reason.
That word, they failed me.
But, when he brings her to him and they share that first kiss, he snaps that webbing shot at her. And then where does the webbing go? Like, it just vanishes. No one cares.
Nope, it's stuck to her clothes forever. How do you wash this out?
And no one would notice. Her father doesn't seem, like, shocked or appalled that she's got a teenage boy in the room who he didn't see come in. Did you know?
Yeah.
That bothered me. Like,
I think he was like, oh, we'll have a talk after the dinner. Not to alarm anyone. That's what I thought he was going to do, but he didn't.
No, I'm sorry, that bothered me.
The second half is just...
The second half, it loses you. It's not necessarily bad, it's just not on par with the first half, and that lack of consistency really brings the film down. But as I said before, that being said, I did prefer this one to the first Tobey Maguire film. It did seem a little bit more grounded, a little bit more authentic, and the Spider-Man seemed true to the comics.
I like them both, actually. I don't mind them. Like, I guess I'll have to get used to this new Spider-Man after. But, like, I like both. I like both Garfield and Tobey Maguire. I think they both have their pros and cons, but for the most part, I enjoyed both movies.
Yeah. The Amazing Spider-Man, check it out. It's definitely a comic book film worth seeing. But that being said, it is a comic book film.
Watch it in 2D. Save yourself the money. Like, do you really want to see Emma Stone's black ashes poking out at you? I mean, they could, if they made it brown to match the blonde.
You remember in the trailer how there was that awesome thing where it's his perspective as he's going all over New York? Yeah, for some reason in the final cut they abridged that. It was the coolest part of the trailer, and you get very little of it, but you know what, why not?
It's also the first half, if I remember right. Yeah, and it's wasted.
There's a bit of wasted potential, but the film overall is very good, so check it out. But until next time, I'm Das Hat.
I'm Maya.
And you've been watching Buzz Banter.